Your very existence makes others uncomfortable, not because of what you say or do, but because of what you are, spiritually free. Carl Jung discovered why society instinctively fears and attempts to suppress individuals who've achieved genuine psychological freedom. It's not conspiracy or conscious oppression. It's what Jung called the collective unconscious defending itself against the threat that conscious individuals represent to unconscious structures. Today, I'm revealing Jung's 5 reasons why the world fears spiritually free people. Insights that explain why your awakening triggers such strong reactions in others, why society creates endless obstacles to consciousness, and why your freedom feels dangerous to those still imprisoned. Here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. Spiritually free individuals don't threaten society through rebellion or rejection. They threaten it through transcendence. Your freedom reveals others' imprisonment. Your authenticity exposes their performance. Your peace highlights their conflict. Jung called this the mirror effect of individuation. The awakened person becomes a reflection that shows others what they're not ready to see. The first reason reveals why your presence alone disturbs others. You prove the prison is voluntary. Jung discovered that spiritually free individuals represent what he called living proof of optional imprisonment. Simply by existing freely, you demonstrate that the limitations everyone accepts as reality are actually choices. The beliefs people organize their lives around are revealed as optional. The structures they consider necessary are shown as voluntary. Your freedom proves their prison doors were never locked. They've been holding them closed themselves. Here's what this means. Most people live within what Jung called invisible cages, psychological limitations they believe are external reality. I have to maintain this image. I must achieve these goals. I need others' approval. These feel like unchangeable facts of existence. Then you appear, living without these limitations, proving they were never mandatory. Jung wrote, "The individuated person terrifies the collective not through aggression, but through demonstration. They prove that what everyone accepts as necessary suffering is actually chosen suffering." This proof manifests in specific ways Jung documented. You work without anxiety about outcomes, showing that career stress is optional. You relate without needing validation, proving that approval seeking is chosen. You live without comparing yourself to others, demonstrating that competition is voluntary. Each aspect of your freedom reveals another bar of the cage as imaginary. What makes this so threatening is that it invalidates entire life structures. If someone has sacrificed authenticity for security, your authentic freedom suggests their sacrifice was unnecessary. If they've spent decades climbing ladders, your contentment without achievement implies their climbing was pointless. Your existence retroactively questions every compromise they've made. Jung identified what he called the freedom mirror, how spiritually free people reflect others' imprisonment without trying. You don't need to point out their cages. Your freedom makes the bars visible. You won't criticize their choices. Your different choices reveal theirs as choices rather than necessities. You become what Jung called an unwitting revealer. The threat extends to identity itself. Jung observed that people build their sense of self around their limitations. I'm someone who has to work hard. I'm a person who needs security. I'm the type who requires approval. When you demonstrate living without these needs, you threaten not just their lifestyle, but their very identity. This creates what Jung called defensive hostility. People don't just disagree with your freedom, they need to invalidate it. They'll insist you're naive, irresponsible, or deluded. They'll predict your failure, warning about consequences. They'll try to prove your freedom is actually another form of imprisonment. This isn't malice, but self-protection. If your freedom is real, their imprisonment is chosen. Jung noted that this fear operates largely unconsciously. People don't think, "This person's freedom threatens my prison." They feel inexplicable discomfort, irritation, or anger around you. They find reasons to dismiss or avoid you. They create stories about why you're wrong without examining why they need you to be wrong. The irony Jung identified is that your freedom could inspire their freedom, but fear prevents this recognition. Instead of seeing you as showing what's possible, they see you as threatening what's familiar. Instead of learning from your example, they defend against it. But proving imprisonment is voluntary is just the beginning. Your authenticity makes their masks unbearable. Jung's second insight cuts deep. Spiritually free individuals have dropped what he called the persona, the social mask everyone wears. When you interact authentically, without performance or pretense, it makes others suddenly aware of their own masks. This awareness is excruciating because once you feel the mask, wearing it becomes almost unbearable, yet taking it off feels impossible. Here's what Jung discovered. Everyone maintains elaborate personas: the professional self, the social self, the family self. These masks feel necessary for survival, acceptance, and success. People wear them so constantly they forget their masks, believing them to be their actual face. Then you appear maskless, and suddenly everyone feels the weight of their own disguise. Jung wrote, "The authentic person doesn't remove others' masks. They make others aware of wearing masks." This awareness creates unbearable tension between who they are and who they pretend to be. This mask awareness manifests in observable reactions Jung documented. People become excessively performative around you, overcompensating for suddenly feeling fake. They get defensively real, aggressively displaying authenticity that's actually another mask. They withdraw, unable to maintain their persona while feeling its artificiality. Or they attack your authenticity as naive, inappropriate, or unprofessional. What makes authenticity so threatening is that it reveals the exhaustion of performance. Jung observed that maintaining personas requires enormous energy, the constant monitoring of image, the careful construction of responses, the perpetual adjustment of presentation. It's psychologically exhausting. When people encounter someone not performing this exhaustion, they become aware of their own depletion. Jung identified different types of personas that authenticity threatens: the success persona that hides insecurity, the spiritual persona that masks ordinary humanness, the helper persona that covers personal needs, the rebel persona that disguises conformity. Each mask serves a protective function, and your authenticity threatens that protection. The threat goes beyond individual masks to what Jung called collective mask agreements. Groups maintain shared personas, professional environments where everyone pretends to care about company goals, social circles where everyone performs happiness, families where everyone maintains assigned roles. Your authenticity breaks these agreements, making everyone's performance visible. This creates what Jung called authenticity panic. People around you suddenly feel they should be authentic too, but they don't know how. They've worn masks so long, they've forgotten their actual face. The prospect of authenticity feels like death, which it is, the death of false self. but without knowing what would remain. Jung observed that authentic individuals often experience what he called social exile, not dramatic rejection, but subtle exclusion. You're not invited to gatherings where performance is required. You're left out of conversations that depend on shared pretense. You become what Jung called socially inconvenient. Your presence makes normal social functioning difficult, yet mask awareness is just one way spiritual freedom threatens others. You've escaped the comparison trap. Jung discovered that spiritually free individuals have transcended what he called the comparative mind, the constant measuring against others that drives most human behavior. When you stop comparing, you exit the entire game that organizes society. This terrifies others because comparison is how they know their value, measure their progress, and maintain their motivation. Your non-participation threatens the entire comparative structure. Here's what happens. Society operates through what Jung called hierarchical positioning. Everyone knowing their place through comparison. Better than some, worse than others, constantly measuring, adjusting position. This comparative framework drives economics, relationships, and self-worth. When you stop comparing, you become impossible to position, threatening everyone's sense of order. Jung wrote, "The person who has ceased comparing becomes incomparable, literally unable to be compared." This makes them deeply disturbing to those who know themselves only through comparison. This escape from comparison manifests in specific behaviors Jung documented. You don't compete for status because status requires comparison you no longer perform. You can't be motivated by being better or worse because these concepts have lost meaning. You celebrate others' success without feeling diminished, accept your limitations without feeling inferior. This non-comparative existence seems impossible to those trapped in comparison. What makes this so threatening is that comparison requires participation to function. Jung observed that competitive structures collapse when people stop competing. If you won't compare, others can't position themselves relative to you. Your non-participation creates what Jung called hierarchical vertigo. Others lose their bearings without you as reference point. Jung identified how different people react to non-comparative individuals. Competitive people try desperately to engage you in comparison, creating contests you won't enter. Insecure people feel judged despite your non-judgment, projecting their comparison onto you. Superior-feeling people lose their superiority without your inferiority to confirm it. Inferior-feeling people can't maintain their identity without your superiority to define against. The threat extends to societal structures built on comparison. Educational systems that rank and grade, professional environments that promote through competition, social media that runs on comparative display, economic systems that require competitive drive. Your exit from comparison questions all these structures' validity. Jung observed that non-comparative individuals often appear unmotivated to others. Without comparison driving you, traditional incentives fail. Promotions don't excite you, because higher isn't meaningful without lower. Recognition doesn't motivate because being seen as special requires others being ordinary. This looks like apathy, but is actually what Jung called motivation beyond comparison. The deepest threat is to identity itself. Jung noted that most people know themselves only through comparison. Smarter than him, prettier than her, more successful than them. Without comparison, they face what Jung called the terror of incomparable uniqueness. being so unique that comparison becomes impossible, leaving them without familiar ways to know their value. But there's an even deeper fear that spiritual freedom triggers. If you're recognizing these reactions, people disturbed by your freedom, threatened by your authenticity, confused by your non-comparison, you're experiencing what Jung called the social cost of individuation. Before we explore the final 2 reasons the world fears spiritual freedom, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Comment below how others have reacted to your spiritual freedom. Your experiences validate others going through similar challenges. Now, these last 2 reasons reveal why Jung believed spiritually free individuals serve a crucial evolutionary function. Your inner authority threatens external control. Jung discovered that spiritually free individuals have developed what he called inner authority, the capacity to know truth directly rather than through external sources. This terrifies institutions, leaders, and systems that depend on being intermediaries between individuals and truth. When you access wisdom directly, you make authority structures obsolete. Your inner knowing threatens every form of external control. Here's what Jung observed. Most people navigate life through external authority. Experts tell them what's true, leaders tell them what's valuable, systems tell them what's possible. This creates what Jung called borrowed knowing, living from others' truth rather than direct recognition. Then you appear, operating from inner authority, making decisions from inner knowing, following inner guidance. This demonstrates that external authority is optional. Jung wrote, "The individuated person has become their own authority. They don't rebel against external authority, they simply don't need it." This is far more threatening than rebellion. This inner authority manifests in specific ways Jung documented. You make decisions without needing expert validation, trusting your inner knowing over external opinion. You question accepted truths, not from skepticism, but from direct perception of different truth. You follow unconventional paths because inner guidance supersedes social maps. This self-direction appears dangerous to those who depend on external direction. What makes inner authority so threatening is that it can't be controlled. Jung observed that external authority maintains power through being the source of truth, wisdom, direction, validation. When you source these internally, external authority becomes irrelevant. You can't be controlled through approval or rejection. You can't be motivated by rewards or punishments. You become what Jung called ungovernable. Jung identified different authorities threatened by spiritual freedom. Religious authorities lose power when you access the sacred directly. Educational authorities become less relevant when you learn from inner wisdom. Medical authorities feel challenged when you trust body wisdom. Political authorities can't control those who think independently. Each authority structure depends on being needed. The threat extends beyond individual authorities to what Jung called the authority ecosystem. Society functions through interconnected authorities that validate each other. Experts quote experts. Leaders appoint leaders. Systems reinforce systems. Your inner authority exists outside this ecosystem, neither needing nor supporting it. This creates what Jung called authority anxiety in others. People who've always relied on external authority feel deeply uncomfortable around someone self-directed. Your decisions seem reckless because they lack external validation. Your confidence seems arrogant because it doesn't seek permission. Your independence seems dangerous because it suggests theirs is possible. Jung observed that inner authority often triggers attempts to reassert external control. Others will cite authorities to convince you, quote, statistics to override your knowing. Warn about consequences of ignoring experts. These aren't necessarily conscious attempts at control, but unconscious anxiety about authority structures being questioned. Yet even threatening authority isn't the deepest fear spiritual freedom triggers. You embody the death of the false self. Jung's final insight is the most profound. Spiritually free individuals embody what he called ego death made visible. You represent the terrifying possibility that the self everyone's constructing, protecting, and promoting might not be real. Your freedom required the death of your false self, and your existence reminds others that their false self must also die for freedom. This triggers the deepest existential terror. Here's what Jung discovered. Everyone maintains what he called the provisional self, the constructed identity built from roles, achievements, beliefs, and stories. This false self feels absolutely real and necessary for survival. People spend entire lives building, defending, and promoting this self. Then you appear, someone who let their false self die and survived, proving that this death is both possible and survivable. Jung wrote, "The free individual is living proof that ego death is not actual death. This terrifies those who believe they are their ego. Your existence whispers, you must die to truly live." This embodiment of ego death manifests in recognizable ways Jung documented. You have no fixed identity to defend, making others aware of desperately defending theirs. You're comfortable with not knowing who you are, highlighting others' compulsive self-definition. You can say, "I don't know," without anxiety, revealing others' need to appear certain. Your fluidity makes their rigidity visible. What makes this so terrifying is that it threatens the core project of human life, building and maintaining a self. Jung observed that everything people do serves this project. Careers build professional self. Relationships confirm personal self. Achievements validate worthy self. If this self isn't ultimately real, then life's entire project is revealed as illusion. Jung identified specific aspects of false self that spiritual freedom threatens. The achieving self that exists through accomplishment. The relating self that exists through others' perception. The knowing self that exists through accumulated information. The spiritual self that exists through practices and experiences. Each constructed self feels essential until meeting someone who's let it die. The terror goes deeper than losing identity. Jung observed that people equate their false self with existence itself. If I'm not my achievements, I'm nothing. If I'm not my relationships, I don't exist. If I'm not my story, I disappear. Your existence after ego death suggests survival beyond identity, but this possibility is too terrifying to consider. This creates what Jung called existential defense. People don't just resist your freedom, they must deny it to preserve their own existence. They'll insist you're pretending, deluded, or damaged. They'll create theories about your secret ego, hidden agenda, or unconscious patterns. Accepting your genuine freedom would require facing their own false self's mortality. Jung noted that spiritually free individuals often trigger what he called proximity awakening in others. Being near someone who's survived ego death can catalyze others' ego death. This isn't intentional. It's what Jung called resonance effect. Your freedom activates others' potential freedom. But most people flee this activation, experiencing it as threat rather than opportunity. Here's Jung's complete picture of why the world fears spiritually free individuals. You prove prison is voluntary, make masks unbearable, escape comparison traps, embody inner authority, and demonstrate ego death is survivable. Together, these create what Jung called the ultimate threat to unconscious existence. Jung wrote, "The individuated person doesn't attack collective unconsciousness. They simply exist outside it. This existence itself is the threat, the question, the challenge that cannot be ignored." These fears aren't conscious or deliberate. Jung emphasized that the collective unconscious operates through automatic defense mechanisms. When spiritual freedom appears, these mechanisms activate without anyone choosing or understanding them. The fear, hostility, and rejection aren't personal. They're impersonal psychological forces protecting unconscious structures. Yet Jung saw this fear as serving an evolutionary function. The tension between conscious individuals and unconscious collectives creates what he called evolutionary pressure. Your freedom doesn't just threaten, it invites. Your authenticity doesn't just disturb, it awakens. Your transcendence doesn't just challenge, it inspires. Jung believes spiritually free individuals serve as what he called evolutionary catalysts. Simply by existing, you create ripples in collective consciousness. Some people flee these ripples, but others follow them to their own freedom. Each free individual makes the next freedom more possible. The practical implications are challenging but clear. Expect resistance. It's not personal, but structural. Anticipate fear. It's not about you, but what you represent. Accept exile. It's temporary as consciousness spreads. Trust the process. Your freedom serves even those who fear it. If you're experiencing the world's fear of your spiritual freedom, if you're facing resistance, rejection, or incomprehension, you're not alone. You're part of what Jung called the individuating edge of humanity, pioneering consciousness in unconscious territory. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to join others navigating the challenges of spiritual freedom. To dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary psychology and what it means for your spiritual awakening, click the recommended video on your screen now.